often do you bend and maneuver who you are to feel loved, accepted, or gain the favor of others? In this episode, Carlie and I talk about how to be yourself and how to identify when you're off track and why.
Hola. Happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah, have a great week. Have a great week. That's like a goodbye. All right.
Yeah, and we out. That was it. That was a whole episode.
You know what? We should do that sometimes just to test. Like, all right, who's the two people who's going to be like, dang, that's what y'all going to do this week?
Jane Sanford.
Right. And Nate. And who else?
Yeah,
Maybe
Nate,
one other person.
Nate,
but
yeah.
other than that, they're going to be like, well, all right. Hope you're doing well. Glad you're here with us still. Enjoying May, enjoying 2022. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about being yourself. And there's a few different aspects to that. I think really for me, the first thing that made me think about this topic was the fact that I don't like being imitated. You know, everybody's like, imitation is flattery. But I really don't like feeling like some people are imitating me or doing a thing just because I do it. And also like stuff like what I do in relationships also sometimes is like they try to take on your hobbies or like try to do everything you do. And even though I know I've done that as well, I feel like in relationships, we tend to think of that as like when you lose yourself, when you're trying to kind of fit in with somebody else. And there are also maybe aspects of being yourself when it comes to like social situations or just being out and about. So, you know, it started from one thought, and then I thought about how like across, you know, different spaces, there's still a conversation about being yourself. And that's something I feel like we talk about so much, but it's like, okay, like what is that really about?
Yeah, like what does it really mean to be yourself? Because everybody's always like, be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. And I think it was on the last episode we were having a conversation, or maybe the one before that. One of these episodes, we was really talking about it. And like, man, that could be an entire episode, like actually figuring out who you are and how to be yourself. And I know that sounds so crazy because it's like, of course you're yourself, but not really when you think of all the societal pressures and the things like the pieces of ourselves that we hide or chip away to fit in or to get that love from the partner or to, you know, do whatever it is that we feel we need to get whatever it is that we want.
Yeah, it's funny to hear the saying about, you know, be yourself, everyone's taken. And yet as soon as you try to do something different, like everybody's going to holler at you and be upset. You know what I mean? If you say something interesting or if you're a weirdo or, you know, do something in your own way, it's kind of like, all right. So it's very interesting. We want to be ourselves, and we talk about that in this society. And yet we also, just as human beings, like in our nature, we are relationship based, and we need our groups, and we need the acceptance of our groups as well. So yeah, I think that makes for a pretty interesting conversation. I saw, I don't know if it's really like a quote, but I mean, I didn't say it, so it's a quote. I saw a quote that said, every time you make a decision to fit in, you are burying a little piece of yourself. So that made me think like, okay, in those situations where you're consciously or maybe unconsciously, you're making that decision of what you're about to say or what you're about to do based off of what you think, you know, people around you are gonna say, think, care about, etc., then okay, maybe that means you're not being yourself because you just stopped to think before you just acted instinctively. How do you retrain yourself to like know when that's happening?
I mean, that's a great question. And I'm sure we'll delve into the answers on how to get there. But I think it is that pause or like I don't know, but as we're talking about it, I've done a meditation before. It's like a self-forgiveness. And as you were saying that quote from whomever, shout out to them, I'm like, damn, I need to have a whole self-forgiveness meditation of every time I have like, you know, done that, buried a little piece of myself or not fully been, you know, who I am just for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. But you know what it makes me think about too? One of our past episodes as well, where we had a conversation about, and it just totally slipped out of my mind.
Values?
No, not values. We were having a conversation about, how do you know, like, to trust your instincts, right? Like, you know, so
versus instincts.
Yeah, so kind of even thinking about with this, it's like, okay, you know, you make a decision to fit in, but I feel like sometimes even if the first thing you want to do, you know, like that might be instinctual to be like, okay, this is how I need to act here or there. So I think that could be very difficult to like really catch sometimes and be aware of sometimes. But I guess the main point is, if you are kind of aware, because there are times when we're kind of like, oh, I know they like this, or, this gonna kill them, or whatever. Or like, or even I've thought about too, like when I'm going to hang out with some people, I will think about my dress, how I dress maybe a little differently. Or I'll try to think like, okay, let me do something a little interesting, or something like that. Right. And so I think there are plenty of times maybe that we can catch it. But a lot of it, I'm sure, is just like, that's how we move. So that kind of made me also think about the fact that, like, a lot of times we probably adapt so much to the outside surroundings that a lot of it we probably don't even realize, like, who we are. And so I think it's not far-fetched for a person to be like, damn, like, I really don't know myself or don't really know who I am, because you've consistently kind of, maybe not blended in, but tried to do a thing for a particular audience.
And then that gets me wondering is like, okay, so people listening, whoever, so they find themselves in this position. It's like, you at one point, I do remember the episode we were talking about how little kids can be, very, very real and rude sometimes and like tease you about things. And then that makes you like not want to stand out and not want to be the different kid and not want to be that. And so you do that enough, you start losing yourself. So once you feel like, man, I maybe don't even know who I am. Like, where do you even start to try to figure out who you are? Like if, and it's like little sacrifices here and there, maybe even big ones, you in this whole group of friends that you don't even really like nothing that they doing, but you just feel like you got to be accepted. Like, where do you even start to figure out who you are?
And that's exactly where my mind went after that. Like, okay, cool, we talk about this, but like, so who am I? I remember reading Untethered Soul, how in one of the chapters it kind of starts out with breaking down like, well, who are you really? And you might say your name, but that's just a name. And you might say you're this person who works at this place, but that's just the place you work. And then still by the end of it, even to this day right now, I'm like, I don't know. Like, okay, WTF, like, what is the right answer? I don't know. It's just like, just a being of, I don't know. But when I think about who a person is, one of the thoughts that I would say is like, okay, knowing what's important to you. And maybe you can kind of fake that, but I think that for sure, like the things that you say are important to you do make up like who you are, what you care about. Hopefully that, and that might be fitting in, or that might be, something else too. But when you think about like more, I guess, like on the value side, like what's important to you, what you care about in the world, things like that. I think that's partly like who you are.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that that's a great indication of where you could start. I think another place is like looking at your life and seeing, what and who makes you feel good. Like how do different experiences affect you? Like, where are your passions? Like, I feel like those are a big part of who you are too, or can at least start you down that path.
And then I saw something that was interesting, and I felt like this is almost like maybe one of the best answers about like, how do you really know like who you are? Like if you need to kind of shave everything away and start from a place and kind of rebuild from there and think about maybe all these other layers. They said that think about yourself as a child and think about reconnecting to the earliest passions you remember as a child. So that's kind of a way to think about, what have you always really kind of been into or like to do? Can you think of things that would fit there that you could say, oh yeah, that is kind of like who I am or part of who you are?
I've always loved being active. Like even when I was little, I've always played every type of sport. I always wanted to do that stuff. Like we were driving past the park when I was little and I was like, Mom, I want to do that. So that's how I got into T-ball. Like, all kind of stuff. So I think movement, expression with my body is a big thing. I always wanted to do dance just because I love being in my body and feeling it. So I feel like that's definitely rings true today.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good example. For me, I'm thinking about things like the fact that I used to read encyclopedias and I love to learn, and like I'd always just get books about stuff and then do the things like read about ancient Egypt and try to make my own like archaeological digs. And so I've always really liked exploration. I've always really liked travel and exploring things, uncovering things. I think the first jobs I wanted was marine biologist, which is like every kid from like my age, marine biologist, and then like spy and like exploratory type things like that. So that definitely still rings true too. So think about some of those types of things. Like, what did you get into as a kid, before maybe outside things kind of really infiltrated you?
I'm laughing because the mummy definitely had a hold on us. I wanted to be archaeologist as well. I just knew I was going to be on digs. And I've always loved history. And, those things are very, very true today. And so just thinking about those and connecting with, your inner child and your younger self. And then really.
But.
Yep.
Those are things that we can say, like who we are really. And we can go back to us as a kid. And yet we say, okay, the outside pressures or don't try to switch up just because of other people and things like that. And yet, because of society, like we grow up around our family and our friends. And, there are people who are not you, a church group, whatever groups. These people are not you. And yet they're huge pieces that shape who you become and who you are. And so, again, it's like, well, all right, if I'm supposed to be me, and yet, of course, as you grow up, you absorb from all of this around you, then still, like, what's really you? Like, what is that differentiation between your pack? And that changes all through our lives also, which also a lot of times signifies, like, how we change based off, like, who we're with and, what's this group? And we wearing the big Jinko jeans over here, but we wearing this over here. Like, so, like, what is the line there about, also we grow and we change and we do pull from different things here and there. So like, okay, so who are you?
So in thinking about it like that, I mean, as with most things in life, for me, it kind of comes down to a feeling. It's like, because I can look at things and connect with them in my childhood and see the strings to where I am now and how they all connect and, really look at that. And then also see all of those times when I knew that I wanted to do something different, wanted to say something that I really liked something, but just didn't pursue it or didn't share it because I thought that, I would get made fun of or that people wouldn't like that side of Carlie. Like I had this version of myself that I had to be in the public. And so I think it's really, for me, an inner feeling, noticing like where the line is between like pack and survival and fitting in and understanding that, and then really knowing what's true inside of myself.
Yeah, because that's in our human nature. It's like we said, you need relationships. We want to be liked and accepted. That's not wrong to want that, and that's part of our DNA. And to what she just said, that's been our survival instincts, is that you do need to be liked so that you're protected by your group and your community from outside dangers. And that's a part of our life. And so if it's okay to kind of adapt and grow and you can maybe tell what the line is based on maybe how that makes you feel, is it wrong to be like interested in things and start liking things based on other people? Like, what is there a line there? Like, is it okay for you to make a new friend and then start doing everything that they do?
I don't think so. I think that it's cool to explore new things and try things, like especially your partner, if they really love tennis, I'm saying got Serena over here, but if they really love tennis, then why not go try to play with them one day? And then you can decide if you really like it or not. What I think becomes problematic is whenever all you're doing is what other people are interested in. Like your day is dictated by, well, Boo got tennis at 7, and then my friend likes salsa dancing. I don't really like dancing, but she like it, so I don't want to go at 8. And then I'm gonna come home and drink. I don't really like drinking, but everybody else drinks, so I'm gonna do that at 9:30. You know what I mean? When you start looking at your whole schedule, bro. But I feel like it's a lot of people whose lives might very much look like that. Like if they look at their schedule, it's kind of dictated to everybody else in their life.
Yeah, and even that could ring true for your work or for other things too. I have a slightly different answer because I don't like that. I don't like if I start doing something that other people just want to like hop into it. It's that's cool to be interested or to talk about it, but then go do it. You don't have to necessarily like try to. To me, that feels like people trying to like go be a part of it in my life. Yeah, and it's like, well, you aren't doing it, so like go do it. That doesn't have to be with me. And so also, I think because that makes me feel like it's about gaining my acceptance, or they're trying, you can tell when somebody's like trying too hard with you. And so for me, that would be my response to what's the line of, okay, it's okay to like new things and want to do new things or learn about new things. Go do it with the same person. Like all of that stuff is fine. But I think it's more about motives. Like if you're actually interested in that thing, like, oh, dang, I have always kind of wanted to do that. Like, do you mind if I come with you sometime or whatever, is different than if you really kind of like, oh, like really you just want to like spend more time, or you're hoping they invite you, or like it's you want them to like you, so maybe if I do this, like that can become a thing that we do. I think that's different. I think that can be felt sometimes too when people do that. I know, like, even if I've been like that with somebody, like, it's felt when it kind of, that energy of like, I need you to like me, or I want you to like me, and so let me kind of absorb into what you're doing. And so I think that's where you get kind of iffy in that space.
And I think motive, it always comes down to that. For me, I would be excited, like, if someone did that, but I can still feel needy energy. And so I know if it's not true. Like, or if you're like, man, I hate, being out in the sun, and you're like, oh, you're having a beach day? You don't want to go. It's like, bro, come on. Now, you know damn well that you do not enjoy this.
Right. And go ahead. Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
I don't know if we are, but I was about to say, so when you're thinking about, like, what's the line? Like, how do I know? Like, what's a sign if I'm losing myself and, like, prioritizing other people? I think motive is a huge one. You can really be honest with yourself. If nobody else, just be honest with yourself. Like, actually, I just want to spend more time. And then how about, instead of trying to take up their hobbies and encroach on their time or their, whatever, just ask for more time, or ask them to come to do something that you want to do, or whatever.
Yeah, I've been way better at questioning my own motives around things while I'm doing a thing or saying a thing. And a lot of times it is like, man, I just want to feel, like loved right now, or, you just want to feel, and not even talking about like romantic either, but, sometimes like, now I just need some attention right now, or I want to feel needed or important or whatever. There may be other reasons too, but like I'm starting to be able to tell that based on what I'll do is I'll be like, all right, what am I hoping for here? Like, before I do anything, say a thing, do a thing, whatever it is, like, what's the result I'm really looking for? Because I'm looking for a result, huh? And if it's that you want somebody to be excited to hear from you, or this or that, and then when you call them and it's like, hey, like, I'm in the middle of something, what's going on? And it's not, you don't get the energy you thought you were going to get. That's when you get disappointed. And it's like, oh, I'm only disappointed because I expected and I really wanted something. That's actually manipulation. And that's actually not you just wanting to say something or hang out or whatever. And so you do have to question your motivations in those spaces and recognize, well, that's actually me being wrong. I'm not just really trying to be a friend or check up or whatever. There's things that I want. And that happens very, very often, I think. Like, I'm able to notice that often. Like, a lot of times it's not saying I never care about the person I'm trying to, ask about or talk to. But sometimes when we do certain things, it is because we want a certain result. So over time, you learn to get more honest with yourself about that. And what I found is, as I'm more honest about that, then the next step is me being like, dang, so what do I really need right now? And then I can, like, kind of figure that out myself, which makes it where that's me with my stuff instead of me involving other people to put a patch on my stuff. And so that feels really cool when you can, like, actually be aware during that process and go through that. When you're not being yourself, which is what we've been kind of alluding to, that really just means, like, you're typically, like, not prioritizing yourself. So if you're in the party or you're somewhere or with people and you're making a decision about what you're going to say, do, feel, whatever, based off of other things, again, that's the other things that you're putting above what you want to do or what you care about. And everything's not that deep either, right? Like, me thinking about what I want to wear before I go to a party or something isn't like, oh, I'm not prioritizing myself, unless maybe I choose like these 6-inch heels and I know we about to be on cobblestones or something. Maybe that's, I don't know, an example.
Not caring about your ankles.
Right. And you're like, dang, yeah, I do got to stunt though. That's prioritizing other people over yourself. It is. But everything's not that deep. And then there's some things where you are, like some of the examples Carlie has said, where it's like, okay, really you're stopping something, or you're not doing your thing, or you're not saying no, or you're doing something when you should be doing something else. And that's really for the whatever approval of others. You're not being yourself in those moments.
And that kind of sucks. And we all do it. So it's just good to take the time and notice. And the first thing I do, because I notice it as well, former reformed people pleaser here. And every time I notice, I pull back. So anytime I feel like I need something from someone, man, I really, want them to reply, or man, I need to spend time, I just completely stop. And I completely do not involve them at all, because I'm like, well, what I don't want to do is repel what I actually want. So let me just focus on myself.
You got to teach yourself to be like, you got to be like, I don't care. Like, you care, but like, you know what? That's not something I should care about. So that makes you feel a little better about, it might be still hard, but at least you kind of know what's the right thing to do and what's not the right thing to do. And every time you like don't listen to that, it feels like a setup. Like, it really does.
Bro, and you be setting yourself up for failure. And then terrible emotions, and then you be mad because you knew better and you didn't do better. And it just gets
confidence down because you ain't listened to yourself.
It just gets super frustrating. So These are signs that, you are not being yourself and that you are prioritizing other people in front of you, which also, why? No, so stop doing that. Another sign that you do that is you compromised way too often. So if, you had your heart set on pasta and someone was like, actually, I think I want a salad. Oh, okay, we can do a salad. But man, your heart been set on this pasta all week. You set a reservation. You were hype about it. No, sometimes it's okay to tell people no and actually I really want a pasta or whatever. And that's a very loose example, but just
at least speak up for yourself.
Yeah, at least speak up for yourself and be okay with it rubbing other people the wrong way or them not being okay with it. If you always try to say things because you think is what they want to hear, it's what do you actually want in your life?
Another sign is if you typically have a group of friends or things that you do or a schedule that you follow, and then all of a sudden you kind of switch that up and you start focusing on another particular person, group, things, then that's typically a sign that you're losing yourself, because if nothing really happened there for you to just switch up, it's just you kind of totally taking your attention from the things that you were doing that you enjoyed to get that attention or whatever it may be from something else.
Yep, that one's a big one. Another one is you stop doing things by yourself. And I love doing things by myself. I love my alone time. Oh, my God. I am my favorite person. And thank God I can actually say that and really mean it now. But I noticed that I am not respecting myself or my boundaries whenever I don't have alone time, because I know I need that to function. And so whenever I'm not, that's a flashing light on my dashboard that I need to fix something.
Similar to what we were talking about earlier, if you need a lot of validation from people, there may be a sign that you are losing yourself or not being yourself. And really, that may be more of a symptom of that you're going to do things that you're not being yourself or that you're more likely to. I think probably for the obvious reasons, I would say maybe one thing to start thinking about and be aware of is through a day or through a week, just kind of thinking about how many times you are about to say something because of what you want, or you're going to do something because of what you're hoping for. That's a tough thing, though. But if you can catch, when you're hoping for a reaction, that might give you an idea of, dang, where am I on the scale? Because it's not, like we said, this is very normal. But if it's man, I'm really actually doing this all day, then that may be something to think about.
Another one that we talked about loosely is your schedule is kind of dictated by other people in your life, when they want to go do things. Man, bro.
Yeah.
And moving plans around, it's the worst is when you are waiting to schedule things because you're waiting for someone to reply about something that y'all might or might not even do. That's the worst feeling. They might want to hang out, so no, I can't do dinner Friday. They might want to hang out, and then your ass
putting off other stuff.
Yeah, and then your ass be at home.
Yeah, that literally is letting your life revolve around somebody else, and it does suck when you kind of fall into those spaces, because you really hoping this person's gonna fall through, or if they say we might do something, and then you're kind of waiting and you get disappointed. That is the worst. And it's always so funny because when it comes to a lot of these things, and we've mentioned this, I think, in the last few episodes, but when it comes to all of these things, we have to always remember, how much of a life we had before we thought about this person or this group or this thing or whatever, right? And it's so interesting how it takes, okay, after you break up, the time, and then, I'm actually, I'm busy, I'm doing things, it's straight, because it's yo, why did I stop all that? Or, why did things change? Or what was I waiting around? And losing yourself, like we've said before, losing yourself is also, it's kind of indicative of you losing all of that confidence, esteem, all the things that other people saw in you when they first got to know you in the first place. So it's they don't want to get to know you being them junior. They liked you, and if you're busy and you could be actually I have plans, that also teaches people how to treat you, and also gives people opportunity to now actually make a real plan, or give them the opportunity to oh dang, she's not available, let me figure something else out, and for them to move around for you. You don't always have to be the chess piece moving. You can let other people move for you if you actually stay still. So you have to challenge yourself to stay still so that other people can move around sometimes. It shouldn't just always be you. And I think a lot of times we just fall into that space because we want to get that approval, and yet we forget that, to be cliche, you were the prize, or you were the thing that, the person wants to hang out with and talk to. And yet you automatically kind of put something else on a pedestal, which is so weird, but we do it. I do it. We do it. So yeah, something to think about is, I forgot what the main point was here. Oh, if you change your schedule around and move things around for other people, and you're available whenever, because it kind of shows people oh, you don't really got nothing going on.
And anytime that you put something on a pedestal, you're distancing it from yourself and putting it above you. So think about that. Like anytime you feel like something is more important or more special, just bring it back right on down right next to you. And another sign that you are not being yourself or losing yourself is your boundaries are all busted. Like there are no boundaries. People are walking over them, disrespecting them. You just letting it happen.
Sometimes
It is, and we've all been there as well.
It's that, it's just putting other things on a pedestal. You really, I was with my friend Kyle the other day, and I'm not gonna give the full context of what was going on, but he had to put some City Girls on for me. And he's like, man, you need to get right, like, cause we forget, like, oh yeah, like you gotta be like, I'm that girl sometimes, like. And it's so crazy how sometimes you have to pep yourself up, or you have to remember and speak yourself, because you really can easily fall into this space where, everything else is just so much more important. And it's like, like, no. And when you move from this other space of like, okay, in a bossed up space, like everything really is just different. Like you can say what you want, you get things you want, it's just, life operates just much better when you're actually just being yourself, being direct, talking about what you want to do, all of those things. So like, if you got to put something on to like remind yourself, and you see this in like tweets sometimes too, where people are like, oh, I had to remind myself who I was, but like you do. And it's so wild, but like you do. That being said, if you don't feel comfortable speaking up about like how you really feel, that's also a sign. Like if you don't feel comfortable, just acting like, hey, I don't agree with that. I don't like this. I don't, I want this. That could be hard too. Feeling like you don't want to have a need for your friends or people in your life or whatever. But if you feel uncomfortable really saying what you want, how you feel, or what's going on, then you're obviously like, you're not being yourself. You're just kind of letting everybody else fill the space.
Man, and it's so funny because I feel like a lot of times, and I know this was very true for myself, I'm such an advocate for my friends. Like that's one of the things about me. Would you need me? I got you. Somebody talking shit, what's up? Like, all of those things. But for myself, it was a lot harder to learn to advocate for myself. And I always felt so bad. But then when you think about life, it's like, bro, you can't really beat yourself up. You just got to change it and remind yourself who you are. So either you can be the one driving the car, or you can be the one in the back seat. Like, it's really up to you.
And it's so funny too, because I notice, like, when I look at examples of this, the times, like, let's say, like, even in a relationship situation or like romantic interest situation, something like that, the times where you do be bossed up, like, yeah, I don't have time for that, or like, whatever, like, yo, people shape up, dog. Like, you just are like, nah, like, I'm good, I'm not coming over, it's too late, or you like don't answer the phone after a certain time or whatever it might be. Like, people do shape up, like they shape up or they get lost, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, at what point do we lose all that to where it's like, well, let me change, or what did I do? That is so wild. Again, I keep going down that same rabbit hole, but child, like, that is so wild. Yeah, that's so real. One of the last things is when you pretend to like things that you don't like. I ain't never had this problem. This is the only one I'm like, I could be in a group of people like, oh man, I love this song. This song is trash. I don't really got no problem. Unless I'm at like a convention of like, I don't know, NRA convention, something like that for whatever reason. And I just need to like, for my health and safety, don't say nothing. Cool. But like, with friends and people, like, yo, I'm never that person who's just like, yeah, that movie was good. Like, no, it was not. Like, that plot was trash. So I don't have that one as much, but you might sit through something, with somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna still tell me it was trash to him. But
still talk about, yeah.
Yeah, that one not so much, but maybe there's a place for it, But definitely, like, people do pretend to like stuff, and I think we see it in shows and stuff all the time in like dating situations.
And we see it on social media all the time. Everybody jump, that's the greatest album ever. Oh my God. Like, don't even stop playing yourself. I saw some of that today on Twitter.
Right. 12:01.
Get out of here,
dropped.
bro.
Like, okay.
Get out of here.
So how do you take ownership of who you are then? How do we, we've been conditioned for however many years we've been on this earth to, be liked, and you want to be liked and loved, and, how do you kind of even get back to that space?
I think the first step is a pause, to really question yourself about why you're doing things and why, like, to check your motives. Going back to what you said at the beginning of the episode, I think that's so important. Figuring out your own motives to see where you actually sit with things is a great start. Like, if you don't know where to start, sit back like, man, I want to do this and this. Okay, why? Oh,
yeah, maybe start with a situation where you might, if you're already thinking like, yeah, I'm kind of losing myself here or there with a particular person or at a work situation, whatever you like, that might already be a place you're thinking about. Then start there with what she's saying too, I would say.
Yeah, and it might not even be a romantic situation. That might not, it might be work. It might be,
Be when your parents come around, you never actually low-key, I don't be myself. Straight up. Like when your parents are around, it's like you revert right back to like, all right, I'm the child, let me just be quiet. Y'all got it. Yeah, so like it could be a lot of different things.
So I think that's pausing I think that is the first place to start, is pausing to check in with yourself.
Another thing that you can tactically do is intentionally try to do something that's unique every day. Think about, what you can do that's different. Try something new, read something new, look up something, walk around the block, just being intentional about it. To break kind of habits, to break feeling like, doing the same thing, just to give yourself a jolt of like, it's okay to do something different.
That's a huge one. I'm like, man, I'm about to do that this week. Another one is to meditate and to take time to sit with yourself, just yourself and your thoughts, and really sort through them. I saw a Lao Tzu quote that was like, the whole world opens up to you whenever you're still, but so often we're not. So taking time away from everything else to really sit with ourselves.
Yeah, you can't know yourself if you don't spend time with yourself. And that's pretty true. We talked about knowing your values earlier as a way to kind of know who you are. So now, if you know what your values are, intentionally do something every day that reflects them. So if you're like, man, I don't really care about the advancement of Black people, like, and it don't have to be deep, but like, what's that one thing that you could be doing? Whether that's you tweeting out a news article about something going on or spreading awareness, or even if that's you give a homeless person something, or if you hire somebody, like whatever. There's a lot of different ways and different things you can do, supporting a restaurant, like whatever it might be. But literally just being intentional about it is you living in who you are. Like that's you being who you are in that moment. If anything today, in this moment, this is who I am. So that's really what that does. It just sets you up for really like cementing those values.
Another one is creating relationships based on being you. Like the moment you feel that you have to do something that like you really normally wouldn't, or agree with something that you don't really agree with, embrace the difference instead of changing for the validation of somebody else.
Yeah, that's good. Like that's kind of what we were saying earlier about just being honest with yourself in the moment about like, this is what I could do, but let me actually think about what I would really do. Another thing is to create art. I think art has always been like the way that we express ourselves. And that doesn't even have to just be like painting, drawing, and things like that. There's a lot of things you can do and call it art. But that is a good way to kind of reconnect with yourself if you kind of just let yourself be free and express visually in some way. That could be music too, like in whatever way. Yeah, dance, movement. Like sometimes, every once in a while, like I know when I'm in a good mood if I have music on and I actually just like kind of start dancing by myself. But in those moments, you do feel like a kind of a freedom. You feel like you're being weird and just fun, like whatever in that moment. Like, you wouldn't want nobody seeing that, like, but you feel good. And so those moments, it's like, okay, how can I make more of these moments where I'm really just being myself?
Because the idea is to create a space where, you have so many more frequently of those. Like that happens every single day. And then just a reminder that like change is uncomfortable a lot of the times, and it's a challenge. And so practicing sitting with that discomfort. So instead of automatically trying to do something to comfort yourself whenever you notice the change, like it's like, no, actually sit with those feelings, like feel them, and then allow yourself to change, because that's really the only way that it happens. And then recognizing that this is all trial and error. Like you're getting to know yourself, and that's such a beautiful opportunity and such a worthwhile journey. Like try different stuff, see what works, see what doesn't, throw some spaghetti at the wall till you find something that sticks for you.
Love it. So I hope you got something out of kind of this conversation. I would say that thinking about who you are sometimes requires like, man, I have to kind of go back and learn who I am, or decide who I am. And so learn who you are, decide who you want to be, and then let's really think about like who is that person, and how does that person act? What does that person do? What does that person care about? And really watch that you can kind of stay in a consistent zone. It's going to move around a little bit, but if you can stay in a consistent zone that you are as yourself, and make that similar to how you are when you're with other people. Like, that's the biggest thing is, like, you know, you can tell when, like, you're being different, or other people will call you out on that too. Like, oh, you acting different over there. And it's just like, okay, let's be the same. You know, who you are is who you are. And so we need to learn to be ourselves and not lose ourselves by honoring ourselves.
I saw a definition of success. It was like, you know, that I like who I am, I like what I do, and I like the way that I do it. And that, you know, that doesn't change depending on where I am. And that's really a goal, because I'm not there yet, but it feels so good when I, you know, make those little changes and I'm able to do even the smallest of steps towards that. It's just so beautiful.
So hit us up on Carlie's Couch, Lextopia, CC Fierce, Carlie Carpio. We're on all the things. You already know. Leave a comment, leave a message. Let us know what you thought about the episode. And this week's question of the week, Carlie, I'll ask you first. Are there any personality traits that you completely clash with?
Entitlement. When people feel good for freaking God. Lord. It was so easy. That's as soon as I was putting that question in here, I was like, I already know my thing, because entitlement, and it's not just with other people, it's entitlement to my time, or entitlement to things having to go your way, or just impressing your, you know, view of the world on to other people and expecting them to fall in line. Very frustrating at all. Like, I can't.
Mine would be something kind of like personality trait that I completely clash with is kind of like that shell of a person type person who, like, does kind of just, like, flow with the wind, and you can kind of tell them anything and they just, like, do it. I clash with those folks. But I guess I also clash with people who are, like, super, like, demanding, or, like, know what they want, or I want this, I need that. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it's both those extremes. Yeah. I think so. I just need a little bit more go with the flow, but with purpose.
There we go. So, what personality traits do you completely clash with? Hit us at Carlie's Couch. Let us know.
And we hope you have a great week.
And be yourself.